What's good, YouTube? Drew Surrey back at it again with Calling the Shots. Here on another episode. I know I haven't posted in a pretty long time. Been busy with basketball and school, but today we've got five draft prospects that I think will go lower than expected and will be hidden gems in years to come. Let's get into it. All right, once again, make sure that you do like and subscribe, maybe repost, get this video out there. Got a podcast that I want to start up, and I'm trying to grow this YouTube thing, get that going. And make sure to follow Surrey FX on TikTok and Instagram for the best edits out there. So here we go. 5 prospects that I think will go lower than they should. And if your team finds them at an ideal spot, it could be a really good thing for a franchise. So starting out, the first prospect that we have today is Michael Penix. And I know this is a weird one, and it could be like, oh, he's injury prone, he's 25 years old. But we got to think that national championship game, before that game, he was projected inside the top 15 as one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. And I remember, as a Broncos fan, I remember reports coming out that George Paton was in Washington for the USC Washington game watching Caleb Williams and Michael Penix because we're looking for a quarterback. That's when we had we were one of the worst teams in the NFL as well. So we were looking at him as somewhat of a lottery pick. And so, now every time I go into a mock draft, he's never going in the first round. Most of the time he's going around 40, and that I just don't think that national championship game was that bad for him. And when you look at the stats, he's way up there in yards, way up there in touchdowns, and took a team like Washington, who hasn't seen a college football playoff I don't even know if they've ever seen a college football playoff. So he was really special this year. And, injuries are something to be worried about, but, he came back and he was fully healthy this year. I think he's got a lot of experience being 25 years old, and he might be one of the older prospects in the draft. But I think the upside here outweighs the downside, and, if you're picking him up at 44, I think that would be unbelievable if you look back on mock drafts before the national championship. So I don't think one game makes a player. And to be quite honest, the offensive line was pretty terrible that game. And his wide receivers were dropping passes and stuff like that. So I don't think that game was fully to put on Michael Penix. And I think that he is going to be a serious sleeper coming into this draft. And I think can make a huge impact on a lot of NFL teams because it is a quarterback-heavy draft. And a lot of teams are quarterback needy. So, I was hoping as a Broncos fan before the national championship, we need to get Michael Penix. That's the guy that I want. And then after the national championship, I'm part of the club. I'm thinking, no, we'll go with J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or somebody like that at 12. And it's just Michael Penix was one of those top tier quarterbacks that everybody looked at as kind of the elite quarterbacks in college football and somebody that we wanted to draft or whatever. And, I saw him going as high as 8 with the Falcons before the national championship. And then after the national championship, it's just, he fell so much. He fell 30 picks after one game. And it's almost like every downside that you could think of, everybody just started bringing up at this narrative that he's old and he's hurt and he's had ACL, but nobody was talking about that before the national championship when he put up 400 yards on Texas. So, this is a guy who can throw the deep ball. He gets it out quick, puts it on a dot. I think he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen. So I think that if you get him in the 40s or the 30s, then it's just a serious steal. And yeah, that's Michael Penix for you. I think a realistic draft for him, honestly, should be in the 20s, late first round. I don't think that he's like a lottery pick like Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams, or anything like that. But I do think that he might be quarterback 4, and I'm sticking to that. So On to the second one. Edge rusher out of Missouri, Darius Robinson. He had a great senior bowl performance. And according to scouts, he was the best player there. Like, he looked like the best player there, and he's projected to go near Michael Penix around that 35 mark. And, you had guys like, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but it's like Latu out of UCLA, who's projected to go 12, 13 in that range. And he was at the Senior Bowl, and NFL scouts said that Darius Robinson looked like the best player there. So, and maybe his stats don't show that he's better than a guy like Latu, but, everybody brings up the energy or the injury argument for a lot of people, and Latu had to medically retire from football 2 years ago, or in 2020, and nobody brings that up about him. So I think that that also works in Michael Penix's case. But this Darius Robinson, I think quick. I don't necessarily know his metrics at the moment, but he's projected to go 33, 34, and when NFL scouts say that you're the best player somewhere, where a guy who's projected to go much higher than him, almost 20 picks higher than him, is there, it's one of those things where I think if you can get Darius Robinson in that low 30 range or even high 20 range, I think it's a good pickup. And then for the third prospect that we're looking at here is Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina, another quarterback. I know it's crazy, but a very quarterback heavy draft. And I think people are overlooking Spencer Rattler. Once again, he had the best Senior Bowl performance. He won the Senior Bowl MVP. And you had guys like Bo Nix and guy out of Tulane, Michael Pratt, Joe Milton, Sam Hartman, which, those guys aren't the greatest representatives for like great QB class or whatever. But Spencer Rattler, he was a prospect coming out of high school. Like, he was like the top prospect coming out of high school, had a couple down years, and I think people have given up on him, but he is really, really, really talented. And I just think that, you have to look at talent over production in a sense like this, because I don't think he's a first round quarterback. I don't think he's you can make the argument that he's a late second round quarterback, but in a lot of mock drafts, he's 4th, 5th round, going 90th, 100th pick in the draft. And I just don't think that is a proper place for him to be. I really do think that he is a very skilled quarterback. And if you can get him at that 90 to 100 range, I think he could be hidden gem worthy. And I think he is skilled enough to get it done on an NFL field. And you saw it in the Senior Bowl. He had one drive, but he was super efficient. And he threw some great balls. And, with NFL scouts watching and you win the Senior Bowl MVP, I just think that only raises your draft stock. But, that this is definitely one guy who I think is going to be a steal in the draft, whether or not you like his stats in a couple of years or not. But I do think that, he has the upside of a guy like, I wouldn't say Patrick Mahomes, but I'd say somewhat like Patrick Mahomes. He has that similar play style of kind of run out. Everybody's hyping up Caleb Williams for what he does, and Spencer Rattler does it, just not as good. But I don't think that's 100 picks different. And so that's the third prospect that we're looking at, and we're going to move into the fourth, which is Keon Coleman out of Florida State. And, it is a little bit weird to call a guy who's supposed to go mid-first round a sleeper, but I do think that he is better than what his draft stock is saying right now, where he's supposed to go around the 18 to 25 range. If you watch his highlights, he's arguably the best wide receiver in college football. You can't really say that because you got Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors out there, but I would put him up there with a guy like Rome Odunze, who's supposed to go top 10 or barely outside of it, and then you got Keon Coleman, who's supposed to go about 10 picks after. So I think if you can get him in this 18 to 22 range, it's going to be special because he reminds me of a guy kind of like Courtland Sutton, but I think his upside's higher than Courtland Sutton, obviously. But just the catches that he's able to make in open field, he catches everything that is near him. He's got a great build for wide receiver. He's got all the metrics for it, and he's gonna really thrive in that X position out on the outside. And I could see a team like the Indianapolis Colts picking him up and getting a guy to complement Michael Pittman there on the outside, and that's at pick 18. So I think if you're the Colts or the Bengals who might lose T. Higgins, or even the Seahawks, you've got Tyler Lockett who's kind of old there. Just build up that wide receiver core, and then you could also get him like the Eagles they're sitting at 23, and some of the mock drafts have him going lower than that. So I think Keon Coleman is someone who is being severely slept on in this NFL draft, even though he is in this first round. I think he will end up being a top 2 or 3 wide receiver out of this draft in the future. And yeah, so moving on to the 5th one. This is a one that I've been thinking about since pretty much the national championship, and that is Mike Sainristil out of Michigan, cornerback, and he's projected 99th in Pro Football Network's mock draft. And when you watch his highlights, he is a game changer. He has that mentality of hitting hard. He's not the biggest guy, but he hits hard, and he made a lot of plays for Michigan this year that would turn the tide of games. He forced fumbles. He's great at tackling in open field, and I think that he is one of those guys that you want to have on your defense because he is able to turn that tide. He's able to flip the momentum. He's got that high energy. He's not necessarily the best lockdown cornerback, but for a guy like a team like the Broncos, where you do have Patrick Surtain on one side of the ball, to have a guy like Mike Sainristil on the other side of the ball who is he's out there and he is energetic and he's going to hit you, and you don't want to be on his side of the ball because he's going to light you up. He's going to force fumbles. He's going to get interceptions in zone coverage. So I really think that he is slept on in this draft, and I've been thinking about that since the national championship. I think he had I don't remember if it was a pick 6 or not, but he had a pick and he ran it back a long way. And he was actually a wide receiver that was recruited to Michigan, so he's really good at catching. He's a ball hawk, sort of a safety type of guy. He's sort of a safety type of guy playing at cornerback. He's a ball hawk. He's hard hitting, and he's actually really good run after the catch. It's kind of weird to say as a cornerback, but if you can get an interception and turn it into a 40-yard run, you could even use him as maybe a return specialist or something like that. So I think that getting Mike Sainristil at that late of a pick is going to be super huge, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the faces of like energetic defense here in a couple of years. So that's my 5. I hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure to check in about a year how these came out. I might have called a shot, I might not have, but those are 5 guys who I think will go lower than what they will play like. I think in 3 years we're going to look back, and if you redraft, they're going to go higher than what they actually go in the draft. Once again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll probably post about 1 video a week, so make sure to turn the notification bell on for when videos drop, and I'm going to try to keep giving these videos to you guys, and thanks for watching. Peace.